I got a chance on that show to go visit Robert in between shots, and Robert was prepping the next episode. So, I went over and he's prepping, and I got to spend an hour with him just kind of BSing about Grindhouse and about his life and about my life, and I had a really, really good time talking to him. And then actually Bill Burr, the comedian, was also there, and I believe he was doing pickup shots from the episode before the episode that I was in. And I was like, I think at that point I knew Doug. I knew Stanhope at that time, but Doug Stanhope, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Ricky Gervais, those are like George Carlin. Those are like my guys that it's just like I'm totally in awe of. And I had a chance to meet and actually got to be good friends. And he's done the podcast, but.
With Doug,
yeah, thank you. And with Doug Stanhope. And Doug Stanhope was kind of, along with Kalen, they were like, both of them were like, man, you should, do a podcast, man. You'd do well if you were doing a podcast. And so he was our very first guest. But Bill Burr to me was always somebody that I just thought was hysterical and had been hysterical, always very, very, very funny. And I just loved his stuff. And so I was very, very excited about him being, in the same building or in the same studio, whatever you want to call it, that I was shooting in. And the day that Kalen did come to visit was the day that Bill Burr was there. And, I'm shooting, but I'm looking for my chance to run over and, try to find Bill Burr and tell him how much I admire him and how much humor, and thank him so for years and years and years of laughter. And I was just very, very, very excited. And
maybe a little too excited.
I definitely got a little too excited. So, and with Stanhope, we kind of bust balls and stuff like that. And it's just, I don't know, there was, anyway, so I finally kind of made my way over to where he was waiting. And he was sitting around with 4 or 5, what I think were extras. So I kind of made my way over to him, and in my enthusiasm and in my excitement about meeting Bill Burr to tell him how much I loved him, I kind of came at him like, I love you. I think you're the greatest thing in the world. But I know that you're a what's the name?
Patriots.
Patriot. I know that you're a Patriots fan, and I don't think I can be your friend until you tell me the Tuck rule was bullshit, which, I can sit here and explain the Tuck rule to everybody, but the Tuck rule basically made Tom Brady. And the Tuck rule was that they were playing my Raiders. That's the last time I ever really had a football team. And I was watching that game by myself. And it's the only time I'm not that guy who's always screaming and yelling at the TV or whatever. It's the only time I've ever jumped up.
You're not the Silver Linings Playbook guy, huh? Hovering around the screen watching your team.
No, I just... but what happened was that it was a playoff game, and maybe to get to the Super Bowl, or I've forgotten what playoff game it was, but it was the Raiders, and it was raining, and Brady had the ball, and what's the name of the team? I keep forgetting. Patriots, of course. Patriots had the ball, and their own 20-yard line. It's like a minute and 30 seconds left of the game. Brady goes back to pass, and some Raider hits him, and he fumbles. I mean, I've been watching football since I was like 8, and it was just a fumble. It wasn't part of that forward pass thing. He had it in his hand, and he kind of had it tucked toward his body. And I have watched football my entire life, and that was just a fumble. And so, all of a sudden the game slows down. The game stops for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. The people that are trying to make decisions about and all of a sudden they started talking about the tuck rule. And I was like, that's, and then they ended up basically saying that it wasn't an illegal forward pass. It wasn't a fumble. It was something called the tuck rule, which, by the way, I've been watching football for 10 years, 20 years, whatever it was, years. Never heard of it. Never
saw it before.
And I haven't quite really seen it since. I mean, I'm sure they've called it once or twice since, but you never see that anymore. And that was the first time I jumped off the couch. I said, bullshit! That's fucking bullshit! And I'm by myself, screaming at my TV, And then, of course, Tom Brady, at that point in the rain, took the ball and drove it 80 yards, scored a touchdown, and they beat the Raiders. And that was the beginning of Tom Brady. And that's, everybody who knows football knows all about this, so I'm not going to...
And might have been one of those underinflated balls, too. Huh?
Yeah. So I was like trying to joke with Bill Burr. I was like saying, I can't be your friend. I can't really talk to you unless you tell me that the tuck rule was bullshit and the Patriots and his eyes started, because when I get excited, I can get pretty, like
intense
and intense, I guess. And Bill Burr sort of looked at me and he kind of started backing up a little bit, and he said, well, who's your team? And I was like, I don't have a fucking team. It's because of your fucking, I don't fuck the NFL, and all of a sudden he was like, whoa, dude, you're just, you're coming on a little, whoa. And he started taking steps backwards, So if you can imagine anybody fucking overwhelming Bill Burr, that's a guy who can take care of himself real fucking easily. And Kalen was there because I dragged Kalen along to see the whole day. Did I describe it pretty?
Well, I actually wasn't there for that intense
moment.
You
weren't?
I wasn't there for that, but I remember seeing Bill Burr walking around. I was like, man, I hope I get a chance to just say hi to him or something. And he might have been there at one point, but I was like, I can't do it because I'm a huge Bill Burr fan too. But I didn't. I was like, I can't go up to him. He's probably busy. He's probably going over his lines. I don't want to bother him, but I wasn't there for what you're describing.
I thought you were there.
I don't know. I don't remember that.
Anyway, Bill Burr started taking some step backwards, and I realized that I had totally overwhelmed, and he was like, oh, yeah, okay, like in typical Bill Burr style, he was like, oh, all right, dude, like, all right, take a step back, bro, it's all good, and I realized, I really fucked up, and then I was embarrassed, and I turned around and left, and never seen him again, and except for, I think he might have been a little bit disgruntled that day, because I think John had him on the set very early, like that always happens in movies, and I'm sure that he's used to it. I mean, you get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. They didn't really start using him till after I was finished with my day, and I snuck over and watched him shoot a couple of his scenes, and I didn't. Of course, at that point, I'm not going to say, hey, but he was on the set, and he was like in, what do they call the Star Wars things that they fly around in? Is there a name for them?
There's different ones.
All right. Yeah. Well, anyway, he's flying around in one of those things, and they got those helmets on, like Darth Vader or whatever the guy's name is. And so I watched him do that. And Bill Burr's a wonderful actor. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor. a brilliant comedian, but he's a really good actor too, and he was doing a really, really good job. I thought just watching him work was kind of just interesting for me to see him working. And, because his main thing is being a comedian, that guy, he must have like the ADHD, flying the helicopters and the comedy shows, and now he's on Broadway, and he's this and that, and taking on Elon Musk. It was like doing, and so I was watching him, and the only thing that if I ever saw him again, I'd bust his balls a little bit, because he was like bitching a little bit about like the helmet that they had for him to put on, like it was like a Darth Vader helmet that, like, I guess when you're flying one of those things in Star Wars, you're supposed to be wearing these things. It was bitching and moaning about his ears hurting. He's got these big fucking ears, and he was bitching and moaning about this fucking thing. I'm like, dude, you never fucking had you've never had a football helmet on. That's for goddamn sure. He's the hockey guy. All those guys used to play hockey with that little piece of paper on top of their heads to protect themselves. So anyway, I never got a chance to talk to him again. But anyway, he was so great.